Thank you for joining Fireside with a VC. I'm joined today by Dan Harvey, who is the Vice Chairman of CBRE, one of the world's largest real estate companies that focuses on all kinds of companies. But in the San Francisco Bay Area, where Dan is located, he specifically focuses on your Googles and your Salesforces and these high growth companies, as well as startups in our portfolio. I can also disclose, for full disclosure, Dan's a investor and a limited partner investor in my VC funds. So Dan, thank you and welcome to Fireside with the VC.
Andrew, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I want to dive into how the COVID crisis and lockdown and work from home is going to have probably generational permanent impacts on the business of where we commute, where we work. Do we all need to go up to the top of the Salesforce tower every day, or can we do it once a month and that sort of thing? But before we dive into it, just quick legal disclaimer. You work for a big company. I work for a venture capital fund with not that many people. But I guess we just say anything we say here is not necessarily the views of our employers. So that's out of the way, and I want to really hear what your views are. So tell us first, what is CBRE and what's your role as the vice chairman in the San Francisco Bay Area?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So CBRE is actually the world's largest commercial real estate services company. And I think the best way to think about it is that we're I think of us as like a giant platform of the workplace. And so maybe you think about it as Amazon is the platform to the consumer, and maybe growing into a platform bigger than that. But we basically deliver workplace to businesses all over the world. Being in San Francisco, my focus is on the technology vertical, the industry that's near and dear, Andrew, to your heart and your venture capital and investments. And so dealing with companies as they scale and grow and really deliver workplace. But before you deliver workplace, you've got to be thinking about where in the world to deliver it, and you're delivering it for talent, for labor, for the creative and the knowledge worker all over the world. And so that's what we do. And COVID, obviously, as we're going to talk about, is a huge impact and shift in thinking about workforce and workplace and where it sits, where it resides, and how it changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun and frankly useful knowing you over recent years, because you've got this perspective of when a startup needs a bigger office or is adding new offices. And, I just think of you as part of that grapevine and overall ecosystem that gives us signals of maybe we should call that startup again and see if we should put some money into them if they're expanding their office space. But we've been actively investing during lockdown. We're actually entering month 3 for my family here in Silicon Valley. And the going joke is, hey, do you want to go to a restaurant tonight? And everyone just laughs because we're just here. But to be investing, and we've even been raising capital for our latest fund during a lockdown, it's changing our thinking about, do we even need to be here? Do we need to be in a big office? Maybe talk to me about the change of centralized, spoke, hub.
Yeah.
What do you see changing in the way we're going to the office or not?
Yeah. Well, let me back up one step before to sort of set the scene for what I think one of the reasons for the office was sort of pre-COVID. And like you, I think my last day in the San Francisco CBRE office was February 27th. I think that was a Thursday, if I got it right. And I haven't been back since. And so I think, but if you think about what was the office, or we call it workplace for a aspirational, thriving tech company, it was what was really a cultural statement. It was a place to recruit talent. It was a place for people to come together and have that sort of random collision of human electrons and protons, and the serendipity collaboration of ideas, as well as planned collaboration, right? So you had all of that happening, and these amazing offices, these amazing workplaces with all the amenities and the food and the incredible entertainment and the things that you were doing in a workplace, almost this concierge environment, was in large part to recruit and retain amazing talent that was flooding into the Bay Area and other great cities, right? Super cities, these Elysium cities, if
And
you
I would
will.
say too, it's a talent war, right? I mean, I
Yes.
jokingly say that, you know, VMware finds out that Google's offering dental to your dog on campus, and they're going to up their massage game. You know,
Right.
these offices are part of the whole talent war, and the cost of living is starting to make us rethink it all. Maybe.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, I think they were a way for companies to say, come work for me, and I'm going to put your professional life in ludicrous mode, right? We're gonna go Elon Musk ludicrous mode, and our office represents a symbol of that, right? And so now we're in COVID, and we're really thinking, well, how does that change? Is it going to change? What's the long tail of the impact of COVID? And the first thing to say is to humbly go forth and say, I don't know for sure what's going to change, but I do think that we are going to see workplace get distributed differently. And you already sort of, I think, talked about hub and spoke, right? And I think we really have three things going on. We have hub, and think of that as your HQ or your major core offices that are sort of that traditional place of gathering. I think spoke is going to be where you're going to see more emphasis, which is offices that may grow in more remote locations, whether those are in the Bay Area, or they are in other parts of the country or the world. And then you're going to have this little thing we've been doing this grand experiment on called work from home. And we're going to see how much of that is going to be permanent and long term. And we saw Jack Dorsey yesterday come out with a Twitter permanent work from home. And so that's really interesting,
But Eric Schmidt is saying that CBRE is going to cash in because 10,000 square feet now needs to be 60,000 square feet with social distancing in the office for someone who just had triplets at home and has got to get out of the home.
And who knows who's right there. I mean, I think it is really interesting when you think about what Eric was saying about is basically the de-densification of the office because of health and wellness. The question is how long does de-densification last? Is this a permanent physical distancing, or is it shorter life, given what happens with COVID and vaccines and herd immunity and all that? I mean, so that we don't know, but I do think what we're hearing from the workforce is this sense that for many people, work from home has worked very well. I think there's others who can't wait to get back to work. So I don't think it's binary. I think we've got these three things.
I think, Dan, there's the expression, there's some people that are dying to get back into the office, and some people that don't want to go to the office and die, right? So you've got these luxury buses where, whenever I'm driving around in rush hour, which I try to avoid and don't always succeed at that, you see these Genentech buses where they look like they're very productive in that bus, but that's like a New York subway environment for people that have their California car. And maybe, do we all have to go up into the Salesforce Tower, or is that one day a month that we're doing that? And it's more of, on the peninsula and in Marin and the East Bay, or is everyone going to go to Google and Mountain View anymore, where there's all that food and all those luxuries? Or will there be Google in every single town Like, is
Yep.
Google going to have a WeWork in every single town on the peninsula? And then it'll eventually go further out where the property prices are lower and then hit Boulder. And it's one day, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, you're working from home. Works with Jack Dorsey. 3 days a week in general, you go into the little small place, but you're actually working with someone just 20 minutes up the road now. So you're going to
Yeah.
be video conferencing nonstop.
Yeah. I think that is going to be something that is going to be experimented with. And I think the one thing that makes sense to me, and I think I'm hearing more and more of from the people that I think are on the pointy end of the spear is, look, COVID-19 is a virus. It's a network, and the way to come out the other side is probably not going to be some leader on high who has the answer and dispenses it to all of us. It's going to be much more of verified ground truth coming from the workforce up. And the job of leadership isn't going to be to have the answer. It's going to be to become the ultimate network connectors to the workforce and to learn what truth is about how people want to work. And much like these amazing workplaces in the Salesforce Towers of the world, or the Menlo Park, or the Palo Alto, or the Mountain Views that are amazing. I think part of retaining and recruiting talent is going to be listening to the workforce to go, you know what, maybe my personal resiliency is more important than being able to be bused in a luxury bus to whatever campus it is and have 3 meals a day provided. Maybe I'd rather be in a less expensive city near my grandparents or my family or my parents to help me take care of my 2 and 4-year-old while I'm in that phase of life. And I'm happy to do that. I'd love to work for that amazing tech company, but I want to do it in a different way, in a different place, because I've realized that personal resiliency is really important to me. You know, much like I think we as a nation are realizing we can't necessarily have China building our ventilators and our PPE and our vaccines, and maybe we need to reshore some of that. I think we may see some employees really feel strongly about that kind of workplace solution for them.
So COVID has got us all rethinking everything, I think, right? So we were talking a week or two ago, and you were telling me about a woman that lives in San Francisco that's hunkered down with her parents, I think, in Davis or something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no homeless people on her daily journey to the store. She's got grandmom looking after the babies. She's still probably working, San Francisco tech worker, Bay Area IT exec, that she's now probably thinking, I'm not going back. I've got a buddy in New York City who is down in Florida because New York is really rough. And his wife has been trying to get him to move to the suburbs for years. And he was saying, no way, never. And
Right.
now they're getting a place in Florida. Like,
Yeah.
he's literally moving to Florida. You know,
Yep.
the guy. So I mean, I think that these are like the Great Depression. The Great Depression had a multi-generational impact on my grandparents, on, wasting money, wasting food, on my parents. And I see my kids throw food down the sink, and I'm thinking, man, they seem like the first generation to not be impacted from the Great
Yeah.
Depression. I think that with people sitting in Davis, like that friend of yours, rethinking, resilience in family around to help, and what's the point of working in Manhattan or a mega city? That's gonna, that's gonna have a lasting effect. And if you want to be competitive, you probably need to listen to your employees. Did you ever meet the founders of SurveyMonkey? Because
Yeah.
SurveyMonkey,
Yep.
it's just, you probably tell the story better than me, but the truth is, it seemed like an awfully simple product, and they made a culture of you can show up at 10 and leave at 3 or something. And they had a lot of moms that are balancing work life while working for SurveyMonkey. So it actually became a very attractive place for certain people to work, without being like, I died. I had my third heart attack at Lehman Brothers in Manhattan, working till 4 a.m. and being in at 7. Um, Companies may decide to structure themselves in a way that we got people in Boulder, we got people in south of France, you know.
Yeah, 100%. I think that there's not going to be one right answer for any, all companies. But I think that's why this idea of getting to ground truth for the kind of business they have and the kind of employees they have. But I do think you mentioned SurveyMonkey. I mean, I do think you're going to see, companies that have struggled to recruit and retain talent in the Bay Area because of the large tech platform companies that are understandably so desirable to work for. And so I think you have companies that are, your series B, C, D, that have been thinking, how do I recruit this amazing talent? And I think there's going to be an opportunity for them to say, look, I'm happy to have you work from Minneapolis or Des Moines or Austin and have that be potentially a recruiting or retention advantage, right? For because they can perhaps be a bit more nimble. And so I think we're going to see the importance of that. I mean, if anything, this COVID-19 has done, I think it's put us all in pause in a particular way to go, what do I really care about, right? What is really important to me? And I think what we're realizing is this idea of who we're dependent upon. Our social cohesion is being called into question to be reevaluated. And so how that plays out, I think will be different for different people. But as the millennial generation ages, as people get married and choose to have kids, and priorities and education begin to change and shift, I think it's just natural that those questions get asked, and COVID just is pushing it. I think it's just accelerating it in this incredible moment of time. So I think that's spot on.
It seems like the days of Jeff Bezos going to New York City, Washington, D.C., or Austin or Atlanta and threatening to put 50,000 people there if you don't give me some crazy tax breaks, or, that might even be over. That's just a thing that was a pre-COVID phenomenon that's over.
You really do have to wonder how HQ2 would work out now, for that particular Amazon going through that. What that would be like now. I mean, I do think that we're going to see our states and our cities and our super cities under tremendous pressure from loss of tax revenue. I mean, obviously the federal government can print money. They have the U.S. as the fulcrum economy of the world and as the reserve currency of the world has the ability to print money, but states and cities don't. And so when we think about the impact of just take BART as a generator of revenue in the Bay Area as an example, or Uni or Caltrain, you just go through and you just realize there's going to be a massive shortfall of revenue. And so where's that going to come from? What pressures is that going to put on cities as they think about keeping, by the way, these amazing companies who a lot of as we both know, these companies have been in the public sphere, having taken a lot of hits for sort of the negative side of being generating employment and creating sort of the inequality that we see in our cities. So it will be interesting to see how COVID impacts that, Andrew, as we go forward into this new world.
So people are questioning, they have a time to rethink everything and step back from the rat race a little bit and make their own personal decisions. And I think it's interesting to see a bottom up and what is leader, what is productivity for managers right now and CEOs. as a VC, we often think about the exit. I remember a buddy of mine in the corp dev team at VMware telling me we bought this company in Israel just to establish a beachhead from which to hire local talent in Israel. And, you know, they're good at a million things. Cyber is one that people talk about a lot. I wonder if we're going to see the dynamics of M&A change, um, where a company like Google and Oracle are going to say, man, we don't have any footprint in Boulder, Colorado. And people are happy to work in the big city in New York and SF, and then they have kids, and then maybe they want to get out. You know, so it's definitely going to change, you know, throughout the stack of what happens. We in venture, you know, we've often had companies that have a bunch of the development is in Israel or Poland or Ukraine or China or near shore in the Midwest. Even people joke about, you know, or getting engineers out of Waterloo, or the engineers from Waterloo that work at Palantir all going to be driving up property prices in SF and in Palo Alto, or are they going to stay? Are going to stay there? You know, do you see impact on even, you know, people getting married because they were, you know, in lockdown, or babies and divorce? What do
Yeah.
you were telling me some funny ideas about all that.
Yeah. Well, my wife, I think I mentioned to you, my wife is a psychologist and is spending most of her days in I'll call it, I guess, Zoom therapy and with her clients. And I will tell you that I think COVID will prove to be an accelerant for people who are living together. They're going to go, well, let's get married. This is the moment, right? Let's have children. My gosh, what are we waiting for? And I
Or
think
babies are being born because they're not traveling.
exactly.
A lot of people, you know, it's hard to get your wife pregnant when you're in China, in Tokyo, right?
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
but so
So
there's gonna be babies just because,
there absolutely will, I think, be a baby boom that will be able to be like
yeah.
tied to this moment in time, right? I think the same thing on the, you know, the divorce side, right? You're going to see people who have been, you know, maybe not happy, but living with a relationship that, and you're going to see like, okay, this just makes it clear that this is not working, right? And so, I think that will also affect workplace and workforces. People will distribute out of this in ways that, you know, we'll only be able to look back and you know, quote, trace it back to how COVID impacted personal relationships. But they're, you know, that will be part of this. That will
I
definitely be.
mean, your wife is on the front line of it, and she's doing important work there. But I think that you're going to see, you know, the New Yorker who followed his girlfriend to the sticks, gets married, has babies, and then 2 years later goes back to New York for a meeting and goes, "What was I thinking?
Yep.
And why did I marry her just because musical chairs, the music stopped, it was COVID, get me out of here." So we might have a second wave of COVID divorce that wasn't just in lockdown in a bad relationship, but it
Yeah.
was it was a honeymoon when we went out to the mountains of Colorado, and now that we're getting back into some sort of normalcy, that,
Yep.
that there'll be COVID breakups probably.
Yeah, I have a question for you as you sit in the chair you're in and you think about, I mean, there's the existing set of companies that we know. I know you're quite focused on what are, you know, which of those companies are and industries are going to survive as we go forward and thrive, but there's also going to be green fields, right? That I know you're looking forward to invest in. And do you see them coming into existence and saying, hey, we can be 100% distributed workforce, right? And I think of was it Matt Mullenweg, you know, WordPress, or you know, other companies that are already distributed. But I just wonder if we're going to get a whole new class of companies being born out of this that will be fully distributed and really truly work from home, 100% work from home.
Yeah, I mean, I think that our industry is heavily centralized in Silicon Valley as the most evolved ecosystem, and then kind of New York number two, London number three, and then it goes on from there. And to be disconnected from the centralized ecosystem is a risky. It's risky because, imagine that you go to raise your next funding round and there's only 3 VCs in Lisbon, Portugal, or Baton Rouge, or wherever you are. It's like going into a disco with one girl. She doesn't like you. You need to go to another bar, right? If you're trying to meet somebody,
Yeah.
like that bar with one disco with one
Right.
person in it is bad.
Yeah.
Where you can literally get rejected by hundreds of VCs here at any stage, and there's somebody waiting to fund you if you knock on one more door. And so to be disconnected from that is dangerous. The other thing is, like, I go to a lacrosse game with my kids or a soccer game, and the other moms and dads are M&A corp dev execs that buy our companies. So if you're off in Poland with a Polish VC and a Polish firm, no wonder Oracle never heard about you. So there's like a problem there. And on the flip side, it's driven property prices up so badly that whatever your budget is, $1 million, $50 million, when you leave Silicon Valley and go anywhere, it's like, yo, MTV Cribs, look at what I got in Austin, Texas, or anywhere, right? So there's a natural tension of, I want to be in the disco of venture capital and M&A that, Instagram was courted by VCs, feared by Facebook, wanted by Twitter, and drove that whole thing up to $1 billion exit with no revenue. That wouldn't happen even 30 minutes away from here. So there's a tension of, it's so expensive. You don't want to pay engineers to be able to have a family when it's so expensive, because your burn rate's too high, and they might be happier somewhere else. So there's this natural kind of tension going on. I think that the airlines might be very busy when people are traveling a bit for face-to-face interaction, while no longer willing to suffer in, Steve Jobs' parents' house. I jokingly say the garage is the biggest room. The reason that all these companies were invented in the garage, it's the biggest room in the house. And it's a $5 million house, but the garage is literally all you see from the street.
Yeah.
Small door to get in and nothing but a garage.
Yeah.
There's only so much that you can take before you can get a 10,000 square foot home and some open space. So there's going to be lasting changes for sure. And I think that Silicon Valley has always been so competitive in the talent war that they're going to have to jiu-jitsu adapt to, what people are saying. And I think that luxury bus into Genentech in South San Francisco and into Mountain View is going to change. But I also think people are at different stages of life. Some people are just not great at working from home. Some people just had triplets and it's impossible to be there. I think CBRE is interesting because you guys are in 100 countries and probably can't even track the number of cities you're in, that you don't want your tech team that raised venture capital funding from us to be turning into real estate agents and overpaying for options and stuff. That I do think that you're going to see small kind of WeWorky looking places pop up everywhere, and people want to not work in the house all the time. It's soul crushing for a lot of people like me.
Yeah, boy, I tell you what, and I know, you see it every day, and I'm on these Zoom calls or Google Meets calls constantly, and you definitely, have your colleagues, your friends, your clients that you can see the kind of the crazy, right? We've all seen. All seen
it's not a good time to negotiate something really heavy with certain people right now. They got a little COVID mental illness. Like, ask your wife. I mean, it's mental illness, I think, for some people.
Yeah. And so I do think you're right. You're just, there's people who are like, I can't wait to get away from that. It's intolerable. And, I think one of the things we also have to acknowledge is we don't know what is going to happen with education come the fall, right? So whether that's at the university college level, I mean, what did we see just yesterday? That was the Cal State system is doing now, has made the decision to do education distance online. So that's going to affect a whole bunch. So what's behind that? I don't know. I mean, I know people want to go back to the campus, but is that going to be possible? And you're gonna see the public schools, all that, the private high schools, I mean, in the Bay Area, and so that's going to put pressure again on parents. If we can't return to school in the way that has been, normal, that's gonna affect how we think about workplace further in the fall. So there's just so much that we don't know. We're in this huge prolonged period of uncertainty, and we're just now beginning to get our heads around what does the restart of work look like, and what does health and wellness in the workplace look like? Are we going to be more Asian and Chinese in the solutions? Are we going to have thermal cameras, and are we going to have? I mean, I was talking to a colleague who's in Beijing, and they when they leave their apartment, there's a thermal camera. When they go get on the subway, there's a thermal camera. And when they go into the office, there's a thermal camera. And if at any point
there's facial recognition software surveillance already in place, so they see where you went when you left your house anyway. So
that's right.
Their ability to contact trace is
much more higher than ours. And culturally, they're much more likely for people to be okay with that. So I mean, that's going to be another interesting thing is from a workforce privacy issue, what are we willing to trade off? Convenience for security to know that I'm with the people who have some standard of health and safety in the people I work with. And I don't know what the answers are. I just know there's a lot of thinking about how that's done. And just imagine, coming to a high-rise building and trying to figure out how do we get the right distancing in the elevators? Are we going to allow 2 people in an elevator, 4 people in an elevator? How do we get food up? I mean, we talked about food. Food and food in the workplace is going to be radically different, because it has to be, at least in the near term, in terms of thinking about companies providing food and how that is done and done safely. So all these things are major issues and problems that will get solved. But again, it's going to come ground up. It's not going to come from on high.
What's interesting is watching it on the startup portfolio level when Corona started hitting hard and lockdowns were beginning to be real for us here. We were on the phone with every single one of our portfolio companies, and I had said to you, like, a stamp for the really early stage ones, going down a checklist. We're like, so did you stop paying your rent? Okay, good, right. good. Right. And I laughed thinking of you. Like, they all stopped. A lot of them stopped paying the rent. Some of them that are more technical co-founder, where the product is the sales force. There's not even selling anything. Those people are some of them don't even understand that someone is going to have a kid or has a kid. And right. These young CEOs are saying, I don't think we'll ever get an office space again. Like, it would be at least 18 months before we would get an office space again. That guy had 45 employees saying that. And we're talking to him about, that's a limitation of, Facebook doing those weekend hackathons to stop older people from joining the company that are unwilling to go through 4 weekends right. of interviewing
right.
away from their spouse and children, Yeah. But we've seen, there's a company, one of our companies based out of Chicago, actually, Crafty, they started off as McKinsey guys that as a side hustle were replacing kegs in WeWorks or shared workspaces, mm-hmm. and then said, to hell with McKinsey. They said, we can do everything. So like outsource all the nuts, the food, the refrigerator, everything. And they turned it into a huge business, Graycroft came in at a huge valuation after us and was just scaling like crazy. Well, when work from home orders came, guess what happened to their revenue? Yeah. Yet what's interesting is they pivoted really fast and said, it's still a talent war and everyone's rethinking everything. Send all your employees a gift box. And so they're sending out gift boxes to like all the employees, of all these companies.
Right.
And they'll probably thrive when, Google has 60 offices in the Bay Area instead of just buying every building in Mountain View. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So we're
Yep.
and then, we have ones that are in the hospitality space, right? And they've gotten crushed, but if you talk to them, they're working around the clock for the grand reopening,
Yep. Yep.
of what they
Yep.
see coming.
Yep. Yep. Well, and I think, you think about kind of the hub and spoke, just to come back to that, and in the work from home, right? And when you think about the spoke and go, well, what does the spoke look like? And you mentioned a Genentech and others, but I mean, people like who wants to get in the luxury bus and go to whatever? The answer is probably nobody, at least in the near term, right? Who
Right.
wants to jump on BART to go into the city? Probably nobody in the near term, right? Very few. And so when you think about teaming up, I mean, we do need collaboration, right? And so the question is, how much can you collaborate from home on Zoom or Google Meets? Well, we found out you can. You can do. I mean, I think people have been amazed, even on the engineering and technical side, about the ability to write code and develop and turn out product um, from home. So it can be done. So that's stuff perfect, but you can do it. But people still need, hey, I got to spend 12 hours. I'm not going to spend 12 hours with my team on Zoom. Like, let's go find a space. So maybe that spoke is this deliberate collaboration where 20 people on a team say, let's get together 2 days a week and let's meet in a more suburban location, call it a Pleasanton, a Fremont, a Walnut Creek, whatever, right? Where I'm going to be in an agile space, not like a mosh pit sort of co-work thing. I mean like an enterprise where it's demised and controlled by the company, and they can have their IT and their AV, and they can have their health and wellness practices, right? That's part of it. And you come together a couple days a week there. Then maybe you're working from home a day a week, and then maybe you're coming into the office, the core, right, a day or two a week. I mean, and it'll be sorted out. But I mean, I think that's part of when Eric Schmidt was talking about the spoke. I think it's that kind of, what's going to need to be worked out, is what does the spoke look like? Where is it? How big is it? And what kind of commitment does the company make to the spoke? Am I going to do a 10-year lease, or am I going to do a 2 or 3 year lease? And is WeWork going to provide that, or Notel, or is the landlord who owns the building going to step in and go, I'm going to provide that agile demise space because I own the building and I'm the most logical, person. And I mean, I think part of what is, just to backtrack for a second on agile, I think part of what has happened with one of the best things WeWork did in its journey was validate the asset class called agile space, that there is a business there, right?
Yeah.
Just like hotels, there's a clear business for every, rent a room for a night, right? And most institutional landlords have only thought historically about, I want 10-year leases, I want ultimate security. And what we're realizing is, no, there is this asset class called agile, and it makes sense, and people will pay a premium for it, right? The question is then, how does agile shift and get reshaped in a post-COVID world? And I think there's a big play for it, for sure. And this spoking space may be where they play, right, and gain strength.
Well, we have an office in New York City also, and it wasn't that many years ago that if you wanted to rent an office space for your startup after raising venture capital funding, the landlords said, "Oh, you're not a very reliable business. You haven't been around for very long. You got to put down 18 months of rent paid up front before I'll rent it to you." And that's tapping into the treasure in the exact wrong way. I mean, we were looking at 18-month runway if they were just paying it monthly. So the WeWork model has completely transformed New York City. Real estate. I think what you're describing is probably what's going to happen, to move to these small office locations that people can cycle to or drive to and avoid BART, avoid the bus, avoid the big elevator, do a, travel some and then work from home a little bit if that's good for them.
Yep.
To get there, in step by step coming out of Corona, like without vaccine being discovered, manufactured, and distributed, Hong Kong, Beijing, China, I've been speaking to nonstop throughout all
Yeah,
this.
of course.
And
Yeah.
they are doing shifts. So what they do is they say, we're going to reopen the office. Dan and Andrew can come in on Monday. These guys can come in on Tuesday. And, you start doing shifts to achieve some somewhat safe distancing as it comes back online. They don't just say everyone in the mosh pit
Right.
in day one, but I'm excited to see little offices sprout up in different places, and maybe 101 and 280 are not going to be as horrible traffic. Maybe the traffic in LA get better. Who knows?
Yeah, well, you raise a really interesting point. I mean, you look at a big high rise, 1 million square foot high rise, and and you can put 7,000-8,000 people in a building like that, and you're going to say, well, we can't possibly have all those people show up and go to work, even if they wanted to, right? Given that even if you had 8,000 people that said, I can't wait to go back to that building, you couldn't do it in a COVID world that we're in now, given the health. And so you are going to have shifts, and you're going to have to schedule elevators. Okay. You're going to show, how like when you go pick up your food at the restaurant in your community, you come by and go, okay, I'm coming by at 5:45, and you give them a ring and they come out and they bring you your food. And there's going to be a version of that, I think, with these dense buildings, right? There has to be. Right.
Well, it's accelerating. COVID is an accelerant of the digitization of everything, which is the mission that VCs are basically on the last 20 years and the next 50 years, which is interesting. If you think about kind of Walmart came along and killed Main Street towns and business mom and pop shops, and Amazon is slaughtering everybody by just, putting people out of business. The mega cities kind of suck the life out of these other areas. And if you think of 5,000 people in a building, and that's going to be limited to 2,000, then all the businesses that were servicing those people for lunch and everything else, even a pub, is going to begin to bring life. And you're going to begin to see life and potentially regentrification of places that weren't getting it before. So kind of like Austin food truck in the middle of nowhere. So there could be some positive things, but listen, Dan, great getting your perspective on it. I think your industry requires a lot of creativity and smart guys in the next couple of years. And it's exciting to see where things are going to land. If people want to get a hold of you, Dan, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, probably the two best ways for me would be look on LinkedIn. You can just look me up on LinkedIn and you can drop me a note there. You can also, shoot me an email. dan.harvey@cbre.com, and those are probably the two best places to connect. Yeah, Andrew, I super appreciate getting the time to bat this around. It's so interesting, and all I know is I don't know, but we're going to figure it out, and CB will be part of figuring it out, along with amazing VCs and companies like yours, and what you're doing to invest in the future. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, and and I love getting your perspective. For people who don't realize it, when you go through hyper growth or even negative hyper growth or these forklift VC funding rounds, people are trying to get you to pay money for an option on this, and it's a big part of the puzzle. And that whole puzzle is just flown up in the air. So I think it's a crazy topic right now. So thank you, Dan, for joining us, and stay safe. And I hope to see you somewhere soon at some point.
Take care. All the best. Yep.
Okay. Thanks,
See you,
buddy.
Andrew. Bye-bye.
Bye.